You think you know Austria, a fairy tale land of pristine mountains, Mozart, and elegant Viennese waltzes. A picture-perfect postcard. But what if that perfection is a mask? What if the city you see today, ranked the most livable on Earth, is a meticulously crafted performance, designed to obscure a far more turbulent and complex identity? This isn't just a country, it's the ghost of an empire, squeezed into the borders of a modern republic, still grappling with the colossal weight of its own history. We're not here to just see the sights. We're here to peel back the polished veneer and understand the story of a nation's reinvention, its secrets, and its contradictions. Join me as we uncover the real Austria. When you first arrive in Vienna, the sheer scale of it is overwhelming. It doesn't feel like the capital of a small, landlocked country of just 9 million people. It feels like the heart of the world. And that's by design. As you walk along the magnificent Ringstrasse, the grand boulevard that encircles the historic city center, you're not just admiring architecture. You're walking through a deliberate and brilliant act of political theater. This road, this entire district, was built in the latter half of the 19th century under Emperor Franz Joseph. But it was built on something profoundly symbolic: the rubble of the old medieval walls that had once protected the city from invaders like the Ottoman Turks. Tearing them down was a declaration. The Habsburg Empire was no longer a fortress hiding from its enemies. It was an open, confident, global power, and this was its showcase, its grand stage. Each building along this boulevard was designed to project a specific aspect of the empire's might. Look at the Austrian Parliament building. It's a stunning neo-classical masterpiece, designed by the Danish architect Theophil Hansen to deliberately evoke the democracy of ancient Athens. A beautiful ideal. But consider the irony. This temple to democracy was built to house the parliament of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, a sprawling, multi-ethnic state where dozens of languages were spoken, from Polish and Czech to Croatian and Romanian. It was a state held together not by a shared democratic ideal, but by unswerving loyalty to a single, ancient dynasty, the Habsburgs. The building was a beautiful lie, or at best, a hopeful aspiration. Just a short walk away, the twin museums face each other: the Kunsthistorisches Museum for art history and the Naturhistorisches Museum for natural history. Their identical Italian Renaissance facades were meant to proclaim that Vienna was the equal of Florence or Rome, a new center of the arts and sciences. Then there's the Burgtheater, the Imperial Court Theater, a temple for German language drama, cementing Vienna's role as the cultural heart of the German-speaking world. And the Votivkirche, a soaring neo-Gothic cathedral, was built to thank God for the emperor's survival after an assassination attempt. A public display of piety and divine right. The entire Ringstrasse is an architectural symphony of power. And at the center of it all were the Habsburgs. For over 600 years, they were the masters of European diplomacy. Their motto was Bella gerent ali, to Felix Austria, noob. Let others wage war, you happy Austria, marry. They didn't conquer with armies, as much as they did with wedding contracts, strategically marrying their way into ruling most of continental Europe. It was Emperor Maximilian I's marriage to Mary of Burgundy that brought the wealthy Low Countries into the fold. It was his grandson, Charles V, who ruled an empire so vast, encompassing Spain, the Americas, and Central Europe, that it was famously called the empire on which the sun never sets. Vienna was the nerve center of this vast, complex machine. So when you see the Austrian flag, the simple red and white stripes, waving atop these imperial buildings, remember the legend. They say it dates back to the Third Crusade in the 12th century, representing Duke Leopold V's tunic, completely soaked in blood except for the white strip protected by his belt. It's considered one of the oldest national flags in the world. A symbol of brutal, medieval conflict and survival, now flying over a city that projects an image of serene, peaceful elegance. This is the first, and most visible, contradiction of Austria, the memory of a fierce, continent, spanning empire living within the body of a small, peaceful republic. The grandeur is real, but it's the grandeur of a ghost. But an empire isn't just built on stone and strategy. It's built on sound and flavor, and its legacy is best understood not in a museum, but in a coffee house. The Viennese coffee house culture, the Kaffeehauskultur, is so unique, it's a UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. These are not places for a quick caffeine hit. They are, as the local saying goes, a place where time and space are consumed, but only the coffee is found on the bill. Step inside a place like Café Central or Café Spirl. You'll find marble, top tables, plush velvet booths, and formally dressed waiters, the Herr Ober, who address you with polite solemnity. You order a coffee, perhaps a classic melange, similar to a cappuccino or an Einspänner, black coffee topped with a mountain of whipped cream served in a glass. And it arrives on a small silver tray, always with a glass of cold water. That single order is your ticket to stay for hours. You can read from the selection of international newspapers, arrayed on wooden racks, play a game of chess, debate politics, or write a novel. These were the public living rooms and offices for the city's intellectuals. Leon Trotsky planned revolution from a Viennese cafe. Sigmund Freud developed the foundations of psychoanalysis over conversations here. The philosophers of the Vienna Circle forged new paths in logic and science. The architect Adolf Loos railed against ornamentation while sitting in an ornate cafe. This tradition tells you something profound about the Viennese mindset, the value placed on intellectual life, on leisure as a productive act, and on the art of conversation. And the food you find here, and across Austria, is a culinary map of the lost empire, that world-famous Wiener Schnitzel. While perfected in Vienna, the technique of breading and frying meat came from Milan, once a Habsburg territory. The beloved Apfelstrudel, with its paper, thin pastry stretched until you can read a newspaper through it, has its roots in the Turkish baklava, a delicious nod to centuries of conflict and cultural exchange with the Ottoman Empire. The Sachertorte, that dense, iconic chocolate cake with its secret apricot jam filling, speaks of an imperial court obsessed with luxury and the constant need for new, indulgent creations to impress royal guests. Even the humble croissant, known here as a Kipferl, is said to have been invented in Vienna to celebrate the defeat of the Ottoman siege of 1683. Its crescent shape mocking the symbol on the enemy's flag. Every bite is an echo of a time when Vienna's pantries were stocked with ingredients, techniques, and ideas from half of Europe. Then, there is the sound. Vienna is, without exaggeration, the world capital of classical music. But why here? Because for centuries, the Habsburgs and the city's wealthy aristocrats were the biggest patrons of the arts. They competed with each other to sponsor the most brilliant composers. Mozart, a prodigy from Salzburg, came to Vienna to escape the constraints of his provincial hometown and make his name. Beethoven, from Germany, spent most of his creative life here, composing his greatest symphonies, even as he lost his hearing. The Strauss family made the waltz the feverish, spinning soundtrack of the 19th century. When you stand before the Vienna State Opera, you are looking at one of the world's most hallowed stages. But its very existence is a testament to this system of aristocratic patronage. This music wasn't created for the masses, it was for the elite of a powerful empire. Today, it has been democratized. The Vienna Philharmonic's New Year's concert, broadcast from the Golden Hall of the Musikverein, is a global cultural export, a gift to the world. But its origins are rooted in that same imperial power structure. Even the famous Vienna Boys' Choir began as the court choir for the emperor. The beauty is undeniable, but it's a beauty born from immense wealth, privilege, and a rigid social hierarchy. But the waltz had to end. The vibrant, multicultural, yet deeply unequal Austro-Hungarian Empire was a powder keg of nationalism. In 1914, the assassination of the heir to the throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, in Sarajevo, a city within the empire, lit the fuse. World War I shattered the old order. By 1918, the Habsburgs were gone, and the empire had fractured into a dozen new countries. Austria was what was left over, a small, German-speaking head without its vast, multicultural body. Overnight, it went from being the center of a 50 million-person empire to a struggling republic of 6.5 million. The country was economically broken and psychologically lost, suffering from a phantom limb, pain for its lost territories. This profound identity crisis created a fertile ground for radicalism. What followed was a period of intense political turmoil. From 1918 to 1934, the capital became known as Red Vienna, Rotes Wien, a bold and unique experiment in municipal socialism. The city government launched massive social programs, building thousands of affordable, high-quality public housing apartments known as Gemeindebauten. The Karl Marx-Hof is the most famous example, a fortress-like complex over a kilometer long. A city within a city designed to provide light, air, and dignity to the working class. This created a deep ideological rift with the conservative, Catholic rural provinces, leading to a brief but brutal civil war in 1934. This conflict crushed the socialist movement and ushered in a period of Austrofascism, a homegrown, authoritarian regime that dismantled democracy long before the Nazis arrived. And in March 1938, that regime crumbled as Nazi Germany annexed Austria in an event known as the Anschluss. For decades after World War II, Austria's official narrative, its founding myth, was that it was Hitler's first victim. And there is truth to that. The country was occupied by a totalitarian regime, and its chancellor, Kurt Schuschnigg, made a heartbreaking farewell radio address, ending with the words, Gott schütze Österreich, God protect Austria. However, the reality is painfully more complex. When German troops crossed the border, they were not met with widespread resistance, but with cheering crowds. The images from Vienna's Heldenplatz, or Heroes Square, show hundreds of thousands of Austrians ecstatically welcoming Hitler, who was, of course, himself born in Austria. Many Austrians were not just passive bystanders, but active and enthusiastic participants in the horrors of the Nazi regime. The Mauthausen concentration camp, located in Austria, was one of the most brutal in the entire system. This contradiction, victim versus perpetrator, has haunted Austria for over 75 years. The country's reckoning was slow and painful. The turning point came in 1986 with the Waldheim affair, when it was revealed that Kurt Waldheim, a former UN secretary general running for the Austrian presidency, had hidden his past as an intelligence officer in a German army unit involved in war crimes. The international scandal forced Austria to confront its first victim. Myth. This national soul searching has fundamentally reshaped the country, but the scars and the complexity remain. When you walk through the clean, orderly streets of Vienna, It is vital to remember that this same city was the site of both immense cultural achievement and unspeakable tragedy. The silence on this topic in many tourist guides is a secret in plain sight. So how does a nation, fractured by war and grappling with a dark past, become one of the most prosperous and livable places on Earth? How does Vienna, a city haunted by ghosts, consistently top global rankings for quality of life, a title it often trades with Zurich? The answer is not magic. It's a remarkable feat of social and political engineering. After World War II, Austria was occupied by the four Allied powers. In 1955, it signed the Austrian State Treaty, a moment of national rebirth. A key condition was that Austria would declare itself permanently neutral, a buffer state between the West and the Soviet bloc during the Cold War. This neutrality became a cornerstone of its modern identity and allowed it to become a hub for international diplomacy, hosting organizations like the UN and OPEC. Internally, Austria perfected a unique model called the Sozialpartnerschaft, or social partnership. This is a system of institutionalized cooperation between the government, powerful business associations, and trade unions. They negotiate everything from wages and working hours to social policies behind closed doors. The result: decades of social peace, very few strikes, and a stable foundation for economic growth. This system is the hidden engine behind what you see on the streets. The reason Vienna is so famously clean, with meticulously separated bins for glass, paper, and plastic, is because of a well-funded, efficient public works system born from this social consensus. The reason you can drink high-quality ice, cold water for free from public fountains, often cooled by solar power, a delightful modern touch, is because access to essential services is seen as a right, not a commodity. This explains why kiosks at metro stations might charge 1.50 for a bottle of water that is likely inferior to what you get for free on the street. It's a small detail that reveals a huge political philosophy. And most importantly, this philosophy extends to housing. Building on the legacy of Red Vienna, the city has continued to invest heavily in public and subsidized housing. Today, about a quarter of Vienna's population lives in city-owned apartments, and a majority live in some form of rent, controlled, or subsidized housing. This is the single biggest factor in Vienna's affordability and livability compared to other global cities like London or Paris. This stability allowed Austria's economy to flourish. It's not just about tourism. It's a high-tech manufacturing powerhouse. But it also excels at branding. Think about it: an Austrian company, Red Bull, didn't just sell a drink, it created an entire global culture around extreme sports. Swarovski didn't just sell cut glass, it sold a dream of affordable luxury. This blend of traditional quality and brilliant modern marketing is the secret to its prosperity. With a per capita income of around 69,500, Austria is a serious economic player. The livability isn't an accident, it was built, piece by piece, through careful, deliberate policy. But to truly understand Austria, you must leave the grand boulevards of Vienna behind and head for the mountains. The Alps cover over 62% of the country. They are not just a backdrop, they are the nation's physical and spiritual backbone. For centuries, while the aristocrats waltzed in Vienna, life in the Alpine valleys was hard, simple, and defined by a deep connection to the land and the Catholic faith. This is the Austria of Salzburg, Mozart's birthplace, but also the iconic setting for the Hollywood classic, The Sound of Music. That film, while a fantasy, captured something essential about the visual soul of this region: the rolling green hills set against dramatic, snow-capped peaks. It's a landscape that inspires both awe and a sense of tranquility. From the commanding Hohensalzburg fortress, you can see this interplay of city and nature. And then there's Hallstatt. The village is a UNESCO heritage site, a jewel so perfect that a life-size replica was built in China. It's renowned for its ancient salt mining industry. The white gold, which brought immense wealth to this remote region for millennia. But Hallstatt is also a cautionary tale. It has become a victim of its own Instagrammable beauty. The sheer volume of tourists has put immense strain on the tiny village, a modern-day challenge that pits economic necessity against the preservation of the very serenity that people come to seek. But the Alps are more than just a few famous towns. Head west to Tyrol and its capital, Innsbruck, the capital of the Alps. Here, you can stand in the medieval old town and gaze up at the famous Goldensdackel's golden roof. Then take a cable car directly from the city center up to a 2,000-meter peak in under 30 minutes. This seamless blend of urban life and high, Alpine adventure is uniquely Austrian. The Alpine identity is also expressed in its traditions. The Lederhosen and Dirndl are not just tourist costumes, but genuine traditional dress worn with pride at local festivals. Events like the Almabtrieb, where cattle are decorated with flowers and ceremoniously driven down from their high mountain pastures in autumn, are vibrant cultural celebrations. This connection to nature is deeply ingrained in the Austrian psyche. It's the counterbalance to the urban sophistication of Vienna. The Austrian soul is a constant dialogue between the imperial city and the rustic mountain, between the waltz and the yodel, between the coffee house and the Alpine hut. So, Austria is not a simple postcard. It's a profound and living story. A story of an empire's ghost that still walks the streets of its modern capital, of a dark past that has been painstakingly confronted, and of a remarkable reinvention that has engineered one of the highest qualities of life on the planet. It's a land of breathtaking beauty, yes, but its true allure lies in its contradictions, the tension between its imperial past and its republican present, its sophisticated urban culture and its raw, Alpine heart. This journey shows us that to truly know a place, we must look beyond its perfect facade and embrace its complex, sometimes uncomfortable, but ultimately more rewarding reality. What part of Austria's hidden story surprised you the most? Share your thoughts or questions in the comments below. If this journey opened up a new perspective for you, please share this video with a fellow traveler who loves to dig deeper. Subscribe for more in-depth explorations of the world's most fascinating and misunderstood places. Until our next exploration, stay curious.